everybody. So we're getting ready to start the next run. So,
Hello.
Yes. Yeah. So chat, we're just wrapping up the last few little bits. We'll be able to get started in just a second. All right. So, thank you, Dave, for being our lovely restreamer for the last run. I am going to also be scooting off to bed. I'm going to leave this to Nikki and to Silentsigil, and I hope you all enjoyed this run of Xanadu next.
Good night, Shala. Good night, Dave.
Yeah, have a wonderful night.
Sorry, Nikki? I'm gonna go ahead and turn my headphones down a tiny bit so I can hear Nikki a little bit better. Wait, no.
Alright, so yeah, I see you already input the names that has once a bit for PTNGF.
I believe so. Unless they sniped it in the last couple of seconds. All I have to do is click this button to be ready to go, so as soon as everything is ready, we can get started.
Yeah, we should be ready to go.
Nikki can't be heard on stream. Here, let me mess with that just slightly again. Should be this guy. Okay, I turned the game sound down slightly. Nikki, if you could say something, and I'm gonna go ahead and get started here.
Alright, you think it's better now?
Oh yeah, that's much better. Awesome. On my end, at least.
Great. Yeah, then the rest should be working fine.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. I'm Silentsigil. With me is Nikki Knoll. This is Xanadu next. There's a skipping mode in this game too. If Kay's out there, she might enjoy that. If you use an ability that can't be used in town or you're out of ability uses, the character's walking animation gets a little interrupted. First thing we're going to do is buy a key to make the tutorial dungeon run a little bit smoother, and accidentally talk to Spencer. I'm going to be using my touchpad, my mouse, my keyboard, and the game controller, depending on what menus I'm opening and navigating. This is a story point. She gives us a key to a dungeon in town, and then we get tutorializing. So the backstory thus far. Our friend dragged us out of like a depressed haze that we were in to go adventuring with her, and there's rumors of this mysterious castle and all kinds of strange things happening on this island, and she's trying to do a thesis to get into some kind of archaeological college. So she brought us along to cheer us up and help her explore. There was a murder right outside the town gates, so until that's wrapped up, we can't leave the town. But they did discover this ruin while they were trying to make a storehouse. So we're exploring that in the meantime. I'm skipping all the tutorial bits here. I'm looking for some specific things. I'm going to leave here with 34 gold. I'm killing specific monsters last in a room. The monster you kill with a physical attack specifically, last in a room, will always drop a chest, and the item inside is pulled from that specific monster's drop table. Right now I'm trying to kill bats because they can drop monster bones. Monster bones are tied into the key economy. We'll be using an enormous number of keys in this run, and the shopkeeper makes the bones out of the keys, in theory. For every bone that we buy, the price of, or for every key that we buy, the price of keys goes up, and it begins to be a incredible geometric progression, ending at 2,500 gold a key. So we obviously want to keep that price down. Getting a few monster bones here at the start as drops allows us to control that right from the start. You'll be seeing me do this several times throughout the run. When you fully clear a screen, the way it checks if a respawn is going to happen is at least 3 transitions from a screen away. We're actually getting a little bit too lucky with the monster bone drops. I want 34 gold to leave this place, so I'm going to take a few extra kills here, just to get their money. That'll do it. Alright, for the rest of the tutorial dungeon, we're going to buy 4 more keys. And I'm going to talk a little bit about mechanics to try to front load that a little bit. So we saw this axe we picked up, and that gives us exactly enough to buy the keys that we want. It was originally on the Nokia N-Gage, yes. The port is fairly drastically different. They kept most of the game world, but transitioning it to a different type of 3D means several of the maps are a little bit different. And there are a few other issues as well. Surprisingly, some of the stat systems are less robust on the PC versus the N-Gage. I'm still not sure how to process that. Alright, as for mechanics, the goals we're about to be doing a little mini grind. I'm gonna run through some mechanics here and then open it up for donations during that. The goals for this mini grind are a series of magic potions, which drop from the goblin shamans. They're the ones that are going to be throwing fireballs at me. Level 3, and as much weapon proficiency on this dagger as we can get. Every weapon has a skill associated with it. We want to learn this default weapon, the dagger's thrust ability, because when you use it, it gives you a few invulnerability frames, and that obviously comes in handy at quite a few points. As well as that, it allows us to get a 1 cycle on a particularly annoying boss that actually has to be routed around. Every strike on an enemy or an object in a room grants weapon proficiency. We're searching for the magic potions because they sell for 200 gold, and if you've noticed, every enemy that we've killed so far has dropped 1 to 3 gold. So obviously that's a large amount of cash that'll let us get started here. And we want level 3 for the available stat points on level up. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to the host, because this is just going to be this for a little bit. Are there any donations, or you want to plug something?
Yeah, so we don't have any new donations, but since we are coming up relatively soon in a few hours, we have a big incentive in the Dragon Warrior random, any percent, no manipulation run, my bad. Not everything is randomized. We have the incentive to pick up the princes and beat the game, where we had $47 out of 500. So we are still quite some way to go, but I know we also still have time, and who doesn't like princesses? So yeah, you are watching Speedrun Ragnarok, a charity marathon to support Texas. Texas helps the gaming community suffering from mental illness by letting them know that they are not alone in their struggles, and there are treatment options out there to help. Texas reaches out to gaming companies to help them promote healthier and more productive work environments and ensure they have methods in place for helping employees who suffer mental illness. Texas exists to let people know that it's okay to not be okay. No one is alone in their struggles with mental health, and there's always hope for improvement. Yeah, and as you can see, we are aiming for $10,000 right now, which represents funding one of Texas AFK rooms for one of their many annual conventions, like PAX or MagFest. AFK rooms provide convention attendees with a professionally staffed safe space where they can regain their calm and talk to a clinician if need be. They are open to anyone who needs them, usually during the main event hours, where it's like really, really full, and it's definitely great to have such a space to go back to. Bringing the AFK room to a convention often allows Texas to also one of their many informative mental health-oriented panels as well, covering topics such as how to talk about mental health with sensitivity, dealing with self-doubt and social anxiety, and practicing proper self-care.
We're getting very unlucky with our magic potion drops. That's fine, I can just fight a few more screens here.
Kinda insane how unbalanced the amount of money you get from selling magic potions.
Yeah, it's very, very odd for sure. That definitely stands out. I'm not sure what they were thinking when they put this in the drop table here. We need at least one more. We've already learned our weapon skill, we've already reached our level up, so now we just need the potions. A little bit of a statistical anomaly here as well. Usually what I get is caps, which is the third thing on the shaman drop table. It's the newbie helmet, but they've just been all dropping money so far. More mechanic stuff. So this game has a semi-robust directional damage system. If you attack or receive attacks from the front, your full block chance and evasion applies versus the reflex of the attacker. If you attack from the side, there's no block chance, half evasion, and additional damage. And if you attack from the rear, no evasion applies. That's the cap I was talking about. And you get a fancy red slash animation like that there, and a very, very hearty increase in damage that applies to enemies as well as the player, so you have to be fairly aware of where you're attacking and where you're getting attacked from the entire time. We can make that work. I mentioned that before this cutscene because we're about to be plot murdered and get robbed. Since we want to die as quickly as possible, I'm going to turn my back to this guy so he gets full backstab damage. This is good old mainstay of the Dragon Slayer series, the older games in the series at least. There's 4 crowns and a sword. We found the first crown, and then we immediately lose it. We just got murdered by a keyboard. That character's name is Dvorak. And we were actually killed. There's a ritual that newborns go through on this island where their spirit is tied to a guardian spirit, and it watches over them and gives them little benefits, like fishermen try to get something related to the water as a guardian spirit. It gives them a little bit of an edge in their everyday lives. But since we were hovering on the verge of death, that was a close enough state to the ritual that the shaman here, or the priestess I guess, decided to go ahead and try the ritual, because it was the only way she thought of that would keep us alive. And it sort of worked, but now if we try to leave the island, we die. So we're kind of stuck here until we find the legendary Dragon Slayer sword, because that's the only way we can leave. Alright, money-wise that works out. The reason we wanted level 3 is that this game, like many Falcom games, has an adjustment on your damage dealt and damage received based on character level. In this game, it's roughly 10% up and down, increase in damage by 10%, decrease in damage received by 10%. Hitting a plot trigger here. That lady you see incredibly briefly is Agnes. She's going to be our dungeon shopkeeper. When you fully clear a screen, leave and re-enter it, certain particular screens in dungeons, so she will show up and sell various items, including monster bones, which ties back into the key economy. So at various points we're going to be clearing screens to find her. And this is the reason that we wanted level 3. Thank you, Macker. So if you're a melee build, you can barely edge out about 4 damage a strike with a full-on backstab on this guy if you grind for a weapon and you get to level 4. You can see, since we dumped all of our points into intelligence and we're using that fire salamander's elemental weakness, we utterly destroyed it within 8 strikes. And that's going to be the theme of the run. For the most part, we're going to be a wizard, and we're going to be staying wearing this bathrobe and with a dinner plate strapped to our arm for the most of the run. The reason I wanted a specific number of magic potions is so that we could get 19 keys before we left town. That's exactly the number of doors we're going to open before the first major boss. The item we just picked up is the ruby armlet. I'm not sure you could guess what it does, looking at this puzzle here, but it lets us move heavy stone blocks, and that allows us to open this door. This mini-boss breaks into a bunch of little bitty slimes every time you hit him, but if you engage it from outside his range and shoot him to death, he never gets the chance to split. Because I spent a few more screens than I normally would in the tutorial dungeon, we're going to level up just a little bit sooner. Level ups are important to manage because every level up refreshes all of your spellcasts and skill usages, as well as the normal benefits of leveling up. So we leveled up 5 fire casts quicker. I'm gonna have to manage my math here a little bit. I think we were about 12 experience ahead. Making a little side trip here to pick up a money box, and then we'll continue proceeding through. The way that the stats and equipment in this game work is that each piece of equipment requires different stats. So shields sort of lean towards constitution, weapons lean towards strength, unless they're sort of magey weapons, in which case they might have intelligence and mind a little bit higher. So you're intended to spread your stats out, and stats are fairly well balanced. Every single stat has at least 2 uses for your substats. So strength increases your damage and your accuracy. Reflex does the same thing, but is balanced on the opposite end. Strength is damage more, reflex less. But since we are putting all of our points into intelligence for most of the game, that allows us to deal damage outside the intended balance. You can see us already one-shotting things that are a good deal stronger than us right now. But that does make us a glass cannon. This is an instance of a little glitch we'll be performing later. There's a magical pixel, so long as you're on top of a box, where if you just kind of wiggle on the edge, it allows you to hop up 2 tiles instead of 1, and that lets us do a number of things earlier than we're supposed to do them. I'm opening a shortcut back to town here. And I generally kill 4 goblin warriors, but since we're a little bit ahead on experience, I'm going to go ahead and clear this room ahead. We want to manage our experience basically from here to the end of the game very carefully, but for this particular section, we're trying to remain level 4 because the dungeon shopkeeper's item availability and pricing are based on your character level. So to get optimal pricing for the 10 monster bones we're going to buy to get us a bucket load of keys, we need to be level 4 at this moment. And then we're immediately going to hit level 5 because we want level 5 stats to kill the boss I just opened the door to. So to get to the dungeon shopkeeper, we have to travel a couple screens away. I'm going to pick up another money chest as well. 298, so that is a little bit higher than usual, but that should be fine. So leveling up touching save statues, both of those refresh all of your skill usages and spell casts. Magic potions refresh a single skill or spell's worth of casts. And there's an item called an elixir, which drops from most mini-bosses if you kill them physically, that on death breaks and restores you to full health, as well as refreshing your spellcast and skill usages. I'm going to be micromanaging my spellcast a little bit here, so that after the screen is cleared, we have enough spells to get us to the next level. Another good reason to get level 4 before coming out here is that the goblin warriors, the little dudes with axes, hit us for about 64 damage right now, and you can look in the top right and see why that is dangerous. And I need to close that. Okay. In various dungeon shopkeeper locations, she has a special item. In this one, it is a... I'm going to go ahead and go over here. She can have 4 special items available. One of them is always nothing. One of them is a magic potion, which we have visited briefly here. And she sells those magic potions for 2,000 gold, by the way, which is a little bit of a markup if you remember what they sell for. There's the level. Since she gave us a black onyx as her special item here, I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. Or miss 4 times. Now, this moonstone I picked up in the sewer acts as a one-way portal to town. The black onyx Agnes sold us acts as a town portal. So it creates a portal from the dungeon to town and a one-use portal back to the screen you're on. We'll be using those notably a little bit later, since she went ahead and sold us one there. I'm gonna go ahead and take advantage of that. So we're gonna be seeing a lot of this in the run. Lots and lots of keys. If anybody has any questions, feel free about pretty much anything on the game. We're approaching the first boss. Or the first major boss, I guess. I'll figure out a way to make that work. We have enough keys. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that so I have inventory space. So the strategy for this boss, I don't want to go out on a limb here, or bark up the wrong tree and try to go into it too in-depth. But we kind of just nip straight to the root of the problem. If he would cooperate. That's a direct result of investing fully in intelligence. The intended way to fight that boss, he has these little nodules on his roots. And each of those nodules gives him a fairly rapid tick of regeneration. So you have to run around in a circle and pop all the little nodules, and then you can burn the tentacle down. But that is slow. He can actually kill us 2 or 3 times, and it's still faster to attempt this rather than do it the intended way. The item we just got is the Gauntlet. It lets us break through boulders and rocks with a little bit of a cute side effect. You just saw me take off my weapon. Now I can solve box puzzles with my fists. So long as the Gauntlet is equipped, I can break wooden boxes. That's actually a fairly minor but repetitive time save there. When you have a weapon in your hand, there's a sheathing and unsheathing animation every time you go to swing at a box. Whenever you break a box, you unsheath your weapon, and then when you go to push a box, you sheath it again, so you have both hands free to push the box. Since we don't have to worry about that anymore, that's a little bit nice. And we won't be having a weapon in our hands again until almost the final dungeon. Third dungeon from the final dungeon. That box is a 2-handed sword, which we use for money. And I'm going to get as close to this level up as possible without actually leveling up. And then we'll be on track experience-wise for quite a while, unless I mess it up, or I guess until I mess it up. 599 into 600, good. And this is the major little break of the game. If you look at this, and you consider the options we have available, there's no way for me to actually solve this puzzle. But with our little magical pixel here, we can go ahead and push this box on the switch. So we're intended to come back later with these hover boots and get this. And it's pretty far out of depth. This is the 3rd level of this needle spell here, right? And you've seen that I'm already doing pretty decent damage to things outside of my range. but since that's the 3rd level of the needle spell, it does something around 270% increased damage compared to what it's doing now with our high intelligence investment. And as you would imagine, that allows us to push our luck even further and just zip through several more areas at very high risk to our health. I was hoping there'd be more of a reaction to those, tree puns. But I guess I'll just leave it alone for now. We're going to be abusing another of the major mechanics here. You saw that I put all of my points into intelligence, and then I almost got a level up, right? But I didn't level up, which means all of those points are still in my level up pool. While they're not... stats only become permanently, and I'm going to go and grab a safety potion, because this is a marathon. Right, leveling up. You can see that those points are still in my pool. They only become invested in a skill permanently if you level up while they're invested. So as long as you pull them out just before level up, they remain flexible points in your pool. Now, we're going to be, I wouldn't say abusing it, because it is an intended system, but we are going to be taking advantage of that maliciously for various reasons. The boss that I mentioned earlier that we get the thrust skill for is immune to magical damage, so you think about that, you can see why we're going to be a little bit careful with that. For this dungeon, things are still a little bit too strong at the moment, and we have to start managing our spellcasts fairly strictly, because we only have one level 3 spell at the moment. I'm going to be taking the low-hanging fruit, killing what is easy to kill, which means bats. The bats in this zone take 2 spellcasts to kill, and they're worth 7 experience, which is what the strongest enemy in the previous area is worth to kill. So we're continuing to level up as we run through. Good puns, chat. We'll warm up. We'll warm up to it. There's several other bosses, although there's one that I just can't think of any puns for at all. It's a spider. I'm very bad at making spider puns. I don't know why. More box puzzle solving with our fists. This area is purposefully complex. There's a few water gates and sluiceways that open up, and we'll actually be coming back to the larger portion of it later, but the keystone we just picked up is for the... it solves the second part of the area's puzzle. So we get it now so that we don't have to open any of these shortcuts and come back for it later. That bat just hit me for 70 damage. Scary. Nice, RBG Mel. Nice. A lot of little bitty tech is happening every time I open a door or break a boulder. It's not frame perfect. There's a few frames of access for it, but as you approach a door, as you get into its window of activation, you can activate it before the key sign pops up and before it stumbles on you. Mechanical thing here. You can see I'm out of spellcast for Needle. When I read the spell book, it gives me more casts. Also, let's see if I can do it. Oh, I messed it up. Alright, that was the only damage boost in the run. Those rocks can throw you to the other end of the screen, and I missed it. It's very incredibly minor, but it's neat when it happens. Right now, we're just traveling through to the next zone. It's another good time for any donations or any puns Nikki wants to throw out? Or any plugs?
Yeah, no donations right now. I guess many people are asleep also at the moment. I just make aware of the few donation incentives we have for, well, today or the upcoming day, depending on, should be today almost. So we have a donation incentive in Dragon Warrior to pick up the princess and beat the game. We had $47 out of 500. Then for the girl and the robot, we have 2 bit wars, one for a blue or white dress, which are still completely undecided, so you can easily snipe those still. Just as the ancient or shiny look. Same for that. How far? Yeah. Then we have Super Smash Brothers Brawl New Game Plus, where you can donate for the fighter tag. And then later on in the evening, we have Lufia 2 Ancient Cave, where we have naming incentives, 3 of them, where the top 2, because we have 2 runners, will make it. Where you can name Maxim, you can name the capsule monster, and you can choose the capsule monster out of the 7 available. All without donation yet. As well as choose the 4th character if you want, on top of Artie, Deca, and Maxim, if you want Guy, Zolan, Tia, or Lexus. That's always a great thing to donate for. I know I had my fun at I think Random Real it was, where I had TNT carrying me through to at least reach the jelly.
Alright. We opened a shortcut back to town. For some reason, a very enthusiastic miner gave us $500. And I'm not joking here, this is actually what he says. He's just so happy he can return to work in the monster-ridden mountains that he decides to pay us for opening the shortcut back. It's a very strange thing. But we used that 500 gold to buy a black onyx, which costs 500 gold, because we're going to be using that later. Bob the Builder our way up through that puzzle. Miner as in breaks rocks. I did say dollars first. This is where things start to get incredibly dangerous. Because these things can crit kill me fairly easily. And I also have to micromanage my spells and try to stay alive and not get lost. So we want to be level 8 for the next boss. We need all 20 cast of this spell for this room. This is where Agnes will appear. We need to refresh our monster bones to get even more keys. A lot of the undead don't stagger, so you have to be very careful at what point in their animation you're attacking them. Very rude, birds. So instead of the 250, I believe it was, for the first set of monster bones, since we're above character level 5, Agnes is going to charge 100 per 2 monster bones. Luckily there's 500 gold in this box here. So that takes care of that price, and leaves us a little bit of spare change for whatever her special item might be. We're hoping for the intelligence seed at this location. Excellent. Every point of intelligence is a fairly large boost in our damage. And here, that means we can conserve a few more spellcasts and get this level up just a little bit easier. I approve of all the punnage. This is, I think, my favorite box puzzle, and coming back through this room, it completely changes how it works, so you have to really think about what you're going to do to solve it. And there we go. This is the most dangerous room in the game because I forget that it exists. And the skeletons by the doorway fairly often murder me. We're going to be using our weaker spells here to just chip away at some of these gargoyles. Instead of 10 casts, it's taking me 9 on average to get rid of them because of that intelligence seed. I'm going to do as much damage to these things as I possibly can. And, oh no, oh, well, yes, we just used an elixir. As I mentioned before, it fully restores our spellcasts. So that allows us to go ahead and finish off this little mini grind before the boss without having to backtrack to town or do any other shenanigans. If they can die, thank you. Yep, we are on track. Why did you shoot the wall, hero? Okay, I'm gonna get the heck away from these things so I can start sniping them away. There's our level up. This puzzle also blew my mind. Casually. I'm not joking, that was hard for me to figure out the first time I played this. This is our first crash screen, so I'm going to go ahead and make a safety save. It is usually fine, because we found a workaround, which is that right there. For some reason, leaving the screen and just having it focus on very little usually makes it behave as it does. And now we're going to invest our shiny new skill points into intelligence once again to take care of an itsy-bitsy problem we're about to have. Everybody say hello to our good friend Skulltula as he Kool-Aid Mans his way through the wall. Now this is a scripted battle with 2 phases. The first phase he runs through 3 or 4 cycles of different attacks, some of which are incredibly dangerous. And then the second phase he bonks into the wall and floor. But by standing in those specific positions and moving in that way, you can clear the first phase after dodging his first attack. And then he just kind of bonks into that pillar and you can shoot him to death. He or she. I don't know how to properly identify giant spiders. There's our second crown. Remember, the first one Oh, third crown, right, we killed the tree already. Remember that the first crown was stolen from us by a keyboard who stabbed us to death. Alright, this key item is interesting. It's shown up in quite a few Falcom games in various forms. In this game, it's a pair of glasses. It lets us see and interact with invisible objects, such as this bridge I'm about to walk on. But while we have them on, we cannot see enemies or NPCs. So of course I'm going to keep them on for a little bit to minimize my menuing, while I run through dangerous areas wearing nothing but a bathrobe. The second key item that's unlocked there is a Firestone. It unlocks what I like to call the slow travel system. Little bitty teleporters set up that go to specific locations. Now we weave our way back through this zone. And now remember, these things can hit me for about 80 damage a swipe. We're a little bit tankier now, but not that tanky. This chest was invisible earlier, but with the spectacles on, we can see it and get ourselves a fat 1000 G. I don't know if you've noticed, but we've opened up quite a few shortcuts back to town thus far, and we're about to open up a second path that we got access to when we got the spectacles. You might remember this zone from much earlier. This is where we fought that little slime. You can see part of the map is already done, so we've definitely been here before. I'm backtracking to this room here where we picked up that extra money before, because suddenly there are invisible bridges. And we get an amazing prize for coming back here. It's called the Ignition Spell. And now things are really gonna kick up a notch. I usually keep that one. Let's go ahead and make sure I do what I usually do here. So this spell is kind of fun. You'll be seeing it very shortly. Now that we've crossed that bridge again, I can go ahead and take off these incredibly dangerous glasses. We're entering into an area called Treasure Woods. I'm assuming that was supposed to be treacherous. It's a Lost Woods kind of area. One of the other runners, by the name of Shiroi Tenshii, found a couple of ways through here that don't use the intended path. Oh, and Guardian cards. Remember, we got a Guardian Spirit attached to us? We've skipped by a large number of potential cards. Right now we have the Sulfid card, and we picked up the other one we're going to use in the run from that box there. The intended way through the forest, you're supposed to keep the spectacles on while all these things are running around and shouting at you and throwing fireballs and exploding. And these little glyphs by the entryways will glow if it's the quote-unquote correct path. Oh, and this is Ignition, by the way. It does a very large amount of fire damage to literally everything on the screen. That's good. I gotta do math every once in a while. We don't want to get any more experience here. The Guardian card that I picked up is called Flugel, and its special effect is that per card level, it grants you an additional percentage of experience, a 10% boost per card level, and it goes to card level 5, which means once we get it to level 5, we'll be getting a 50% boost in our experience gained. It explodes everything. X codes, it's fantastic. This key item is the Hover Boots. It allows you to hover. What? I didn't hover. I was trying to show that off. Let me do the thing. There, see? You can walk in the air a little bit. Now, you're intended to hop across to that platform there, but you don't have to do that. There's a mini-boss over there. He's kind of a hassle. So instead, we go back to town and deallocate our stat points, because we're almost about to level up. Oh, every single time. The record on this is free if you remember to do this one simple trick. After you kill the spider, the priestess is by the pier. Gonna take our points back. We're going to do a little bit more rummaging around to pick stuff up. We need 5,000 gold, and there's an item worth 5,000 gold back through this zone, and you need the hover boots to get them, to get it. Trying to think of what else I am usually talking about here. There's the level. Oh, I always thought this was one of the most clever hidden zones in a game, because there's no indication that there's a room here on the mini-map. I thought that was super clever. So we got a spiked mace. We're going to return to town once again, reallocate all of our points to intelligence, and prepare for the next dungeon zone. Cards. I mentioned weapon proficiency is gained by strikes on objects or enemies. Cards level up by kills, so every enemy that I kill gives me card experience. Trying to be a little bit careful here. Let's go ahead and make sure I have some extra safety. So we fill up on black onyxes for reasons that will become apparent shortly. And we restock our keys again. Each monster bone sells or resets the price for 5 iterations of keys, so I'm buying 5 keys, selling 1 bone, and then repeating to keep the price as low as possible, and save us just an unbelievable amount of money. And many potions as I can get my hands on for safety. The black onyxes work like Diablo town portal scrolls. They take you to town and then create a portal from the entrance of the room that you use them in back. Or in the dungeon. Did I say what I wanted to say there? I feel like that sentence was a little bit scrambled. And here's another little mechanic. These statues improve your card level. So Flugel is now level 2, which means we're getting a 20% boost in experience. We're going to be using the... you're fine for now. That was not spectacles. Ah, there we go. Eesh. Let's get that away. We're going to be using the bonus point on level up system quite a few times here, using the black onyx. Picked up another area of effect spell, this one called Lightning, and it comes to us just in time, because we're about to blast things in another way here. This one zaps everything on screen. Should be... got the seed, so it should be 2 shots to kill everything. Good, good. So every time we're about to level up here, we're going to be using a Black Onyx to return to town, deallocate our stats, go back to the dungeon, kill one thing, Black Onyx again to reallocate to intelligence. And every time that we do that, we're getting 6 more points in intelligence. And that allows us to steamroll our way through this dungeon fairly efficiently while simply moving forwards. So it counts as grind, and it counts as progression, and we're also picking up more and more fun spells as we go along. One of you dodged. Is it hitting the top of the invisible bridge? I'll just make up for that later. That was very strange. We can get this guy back on. That was the last invisible thing we have to interact with here, so now I just have to very carefully do math for a while. So, once again, any kind of plugs, incentives? Feel free to go ahead. 64. $34. Okay, I think I'm good to kill a slime in the next room before I Onyx back.
Well, yes, and also I would like to know how the sound is, just to make sure again. But yeah, you're watching Speedrun Ragnarok, the charity marathon, to support Texas. Texas' main mission is to inform the gaming community about mental health issues, provide education on different disorders and prevention techniques, and reduce the overall stigma on around mental illness. Texas helps people in the gaming community suffering from mental illness by letting them know that they are not alone in their struggles, and there are treatment options out there to help. Texas' motto is HERE, which stands for Hope is Healing, each person is unique, respect your journey, every accomplishment is a victory. Texas exists to let people know that it's okay not to be okay. No one is alone in their struggles with mental health, and there is always hope for improvement. Texas seeks to offer perspective and hope to anyone who feels overwhelmed with their mental health issues, so they do not suffer in silence. Alright, great. I guess I just have to get really close to the mic and then we are good. So as you might have seen, we have raised our donation total after getting the first whoop pretty quickly to $10,000, which represents founding one of the Texas AFK rooms for one of their many annual conventions like PAX or MACFest. AFK rooms provide convention attendees with a professionally staffed safe space where they can regain their calm and talk to a clinician if need be. They're open to anyone who needs them, usually during the main event hours. Bringing the AFK room to a convention often allows Texas to also one of their many informative mental health-oriented panels as well, covering topics such as how to talk about mental health with sensitivity, dealing with self-doubt and social anxiety, and practicing proper self-care.
Alright. So we're still getting experience, trying to push to our next level. You're going to see me cycle this room several times, because the way this area works, you have to go through here and push that button twice. And that's an incredibly experienced, dense room, so we obviously want to take advantage of it. Another card statue. Now we're getting 30% increased experience, which makes this the trickiest room to not accidentally level up on, because it's 55 plus 36. Good. And there's a minor time save if you have managed your experience correctly up until that point. when you onyx into that room and return to the dungeon, it deactivates the button. If you do that before that room, then the wall of fire that the button removed comes back. But since we're in the room already, it just deactivates the button to no effect. And we're going to get that time save once we return. It's moderately difficult to adjust stats like that. I'm having to use the touchpad and the controller. The game takes inputs from everything you want to input with. So if I had 3 hands, I would probably try to spam it with my mouse as well. One of the secondary goals for this zone is to have at least 4,000 gold before we leave, and this is the time save here. When you turn off that first firewall, it turns this firewall on, and you have to push that button to get rid of it. So if I hadn't stopped to point it out, I would have saved time. Now we're going to go and do our second loop to deactivate this first firewall again. You can see that our intelligent... Whoa, dangerous, 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 dangerous. Yes, never forget that literally anything can breathe on me hard and I will fall over dead. So basically after the tutorial dungeon, the run is a little bit stressful. Two casts now. Those Minotaurs especially are out-of-depth monsters. You can see by their experience, which is worth almost twice anything else, and their tankiness. We're kind of one-shot killing everything else here for the most part, and they took 4 or 5 casts to kill. I think for a little bit of safety, I'm actually going to get the chest here. There's a weapon we used to route around in that box called the Drake Sword. We no longer use it, but it does sell for a good bit of money. That'll allow me to get several more potions and hopefully not die horribly during the marathon run. And now we're going to go ahead and just keep exploding lizards on our way up. Looks like one of them ran away on the right, so we'll have to snipe him. Sorry I'm not talking too much, I don't want to give chat the cold shoulder here. It does take a little bit of focus to get through this, just because of the math. I find the addition hard. Let's use lightning to clear these two. 676. I may have to be careful with these. 722. We were just barely fine. Okay. So we have all the money that we want, and a little bit... Oh, I see. So yes, I should have been very careful. If he'd stayed up there where he was supposed to be... Okay, we still have 1 kill. 1 kill for the math. 80% no math would just be a little bit longer, because you'd have to return to town. As well at 63, 46, that'll work. As well as being able to stock your level up points, you can de-level at any time. So if you accidentally level up because Math is hard, even simple addition. You can level down here at the church as well. All you lose is half that level's experience. So it's not that much of a loss time-wise, but it's still a considerable loss time-wise. So you just want to be careful with your math. And that'll be the last level up we're grinding on the mountain. We're going to be coming up to the next boss, who I just cannot think of any puns for at all. His name's Evil Worm, but he's this weird flying half-drake thing. And he's got a scripted 2-phase fight as well. But in the run, we basically just use him as a experience bump. Needle first. So we're going to be almost level 13 when we leave this area, which means we're still going to pick up a little bit of experience as we go. It's much easier now that we're just so smart. We're so smart it hurts right now. Should be one-shot killing everything but the birds. So, this boss flies around to various locations, and he has some unique mechanics. The boss fights in this game, if you take them the intended way, are actually fairly interesting. Gonna go ahead and cycle that room for experience later. But in the run, unfortunately, you don't really get to see a lot of the bosses. The first phase, this guy flies around, throws fireballs, and then he does various height effect damages. So, that one actually hit me. He fires a directional shockwave, right? And then he charges up a sort of Nova attack that strikes on the same level that he's at. So if he's on a pillar, you want to be on the ground. If he's on the ground, you want to climb onto a pillar. And generally, he's scripted so that even at 1 HP, he'll just rocket into his second phase. But if he's charging up his Fire Nova attack, you can just kill him and avoid the second phase altogether. I don't think they expected you to be doing 700 damage a hit. And now we've got our 4th crown. Remember, the first one was stolen from us. We were murdered and robbed. And we're picking up our progress key item. I call this the Drown Rock. I'm not sure why I started doing that. It's called the Lung Stone, and it lets you breathe underwater occasionally. So now we're going to wrap up and get as close to this level as possible, head back to town, and then progress more. I broke this rock earlier so that we can drop down and pick up a safety elixir. Once again, elixirs pop when you die, fully restore your health, and all of your skill usages and spellcasts. I shouldn't have to be too careful about this. Looks like we're going to be on track on experience, which is good. 60. Alright, I'll have to kill a few extra. That's fine. So, upcoming is the boss that we learned the thrust ability for. Remember I said that it was immune to magic? So we're going to be deallocating one last time, right before this level up. And we're going to go nuke some poor, innocent slimes on our quest for power here. And pick up a weapon to use temporarily. We were 19 experience off my average value somehow. And that's a very awkward number. So I'm going to have to kill a few extra slimes as we go along here. Since they're only worth 1 experience. Right now all we want is this level up from the killing. So 20 left. I think we ought to be fine with that. Yeah, we're good. I killed a few extra, actually. More extra than I intended to be. And we're going to touch this statue. Now Flugo's level 5, so we're getting 50% extra experience from our kills. This is the hardest box puzzle in the game, I believe. I was utterly mystified. I solved that one by luck alone. Fun fact, as soon as you get the gauntlet, you can come through here. The passageway is exactly 2 elixir deaths long. So if you have 2 elixirs, you can go ahead and pick up this weapon incredibly early, but you won't be able to use it because you won't have the stats for it. It is worth 9,000 gold, though. We're going to go back to town, allocate our stats, and pick up items at the store, and then we'll be on our way. So, our good friend and treasure hunter, Agnes, is trying to sell this boat she found in the ruins to the shopkeeper, and she offers him 2,800 gold, right? And then she tries to sell it to us for 4k, so of course we say no, because we overheard the conversation. And we talk to her again, and she sells it to us for 3k. Which is still more money than she was going to sell it to the shopkeeper for, because she is mega rude. Gonna go ahead and just top up on keys. I believe 66 is what we need to finish the game right now, so I'm just gonna go ahead and grab 70. 5k. Gonna fill up on safety potions. Go ahead and make a safety save in case something goes horribly, horribly awry. We're going to allocate to use our new shiny sword. And this is why we invest all of our points into a single stat. Everything I'm doing right now is just the stats for the sword we picked up. And when you can put all of those points into a single stat, you can obviously unbalance the game a little bit. Just a little, though. I'm going to be going through our first major underwater section, and you're going to see why I'm trying to hover as far as I can. Your movement speed slows to an absolute crawl when you're underwater. It's kind of abysmal. It feels like you move a little bit faster when you're skipping, so I try. And then I go that specific way because we get to hop, and you move a little bit faster than this horrifyingly slow crawl when you're in midair underwater. In midair underwater? That doesn't make sense. In any case, we're almost where we need to be. I'm going to do a little bit of menuing. And then we're going to go into the more annoying boss here. Once again, he's semi-scripted. His pattern becomes a little bit random. And he gets this, not only is he immune to magical damage, but he gets this invulnerability shield when he goes into his second phase. So we're going to try to get a 1 cycle using the invulnerability frames on our thrust ability here. And this guy can actually be incredibly dangerous because he has lingering hitboxes and can hit you for about 500 damage a blow. So when those lingering hitboxes strike, it means he can hit you about 6 or 7 times in a row. At 500 damage, that's 3,000 damage. We have 1,100 health. I don't think I need to do the math for you there. Notably, wow, that was a critical backstab. Sick. Hopefully that doesn't unbalance this any. So this boss is generally pretty regular once it gets to this point. What? Oh, that's not great. I had lightning selected instead of thrust, so he went into the second phase because I was trying to cast a spell on everything on the screen instead of trying to stab him. That's his invulnerability shield there. It'll break again once he starts charging this attack, and we can go ahead and do our plan here. There. This is how you get through his attack. The invulnerability frames from thrust allow you to use 20 thrusts in a row. You can get knocked out of your thrust animation by the spikes coming through the ground. And that's super annoying. So long as you're standing in that glowing blue ring glyph around the certainly not a beholder boss, he will always try to counterattack with that spin, which has the lingering hitbox. And as long as he's attempting to counterattack you, you can just continue to use thrust. That was the one use of the bow in the game. You get a single arrow for a single purpose. But who needs bows and arrows when you have giant explosions? And that bow's a key item, by the way, so I can't put it in storage or get rid of it. It's just going to stay there in our limited inventory space for the rest of eternity. That was a story trigger, and now we're going to return to town, hit another story trigger, and head to the next dungeon. We're going to reallocate to intelligence, try to get almost another level up, and it's just going to be a little bit more dungeon crawling for a while, so it's been another 20 or so minutes. Any donations or plugs, feel free. Or if you yourself have any questions there, Nikki, or chat.
No new donations coming right now, so let me tell you which incentives you can donate for that are coming up today. So first off, we have in Dragon Warrior any percent no minute, which starts in around 3.5 hours. So I'm pretty sure that also ends a bit later. You can pick up the princess and beat the game, which is right now at 47 out of $500. Then in the girl and the robot, we have 2 bit wars actually, where you can choose between the blue and the white dress, as well as the ancient or the shiny look, which both don't have any donation at all. So if you want to snipe them at the moment, it's pretty easy to get your preferred versions in. Then in Super Smash Bros. Brawl New Game Plus, you can donate for the fight attack, which right now also No Name has been donated for. And then later on, towards the evening, I think, American evening, we all have Lufia to Ancient Cave, which also I can't believe no one has donated for yet. We have 2 runners, so the top 2 options for Maxim's name and the name of the capsule monsters will be chosen. You can also choose the capsule monster. We have a bit more for that. We have 7 different capsule monsters. And then you can also choose the force characters. So Maxim is given Artie and Decker are just too strong to not get them. But who will be the first lucky guy? We have Guy, Salan, Tia, and Lexus. And yeah, depending on who you might choose there, the run is gonna be highly different. And I feel like we are getting rated, and I have to, oh, thank you very much for the raid, Mr. Chester, and welcome everyone.
Welcome in, welcome in. Thank you for the raid.
Such a strong raid.
Oh, We're still wearing a bathrobe, so I'm going to make awkward mouth noises when I have to juke an attack. It's startling and makes me nervous. His death is still a breath away. I guess we sort of timed that plug at just the wrong moment. I'm Silentsigil. This is Xanadu next. We've got Nikki Noel as the host here.
Yeah, so you're watching Speedrun Ragnarok, a charity marathon to support Texas. Do we have some short thing? Yeah, Texas is, trying to get this out of my head. A non-profit charity organization that tries to help with mental illness and mental health issues, and you might often see them at conventions like PAX or MacFest. Where they will be next?
For Don't Answer 1 there in chat. Yeah, keep the questions coming if you'd like. The closest thing to 100% for this game, there's a built-in thing called S rank that you'll see a little bit of a ranking if we get to the end and I'm able to show the credits. But S rank in a single segment is almost impossible to route through, simply because the requirements are incredibly strict. Let me think if I know them all off the top of my head. So you cannot ever die. That includes using an elixir. So if you fall down and use an elixir, I believe it still counts as a death. That restricts your options on getting your spellcasts back. Obviously, without elixirs, you're somewhat limited. Another requirement is that you use under 20 potions, which includes healing and magic potions. So once again, your ability to get your skills and spellcast back is severely limited by that. And you're only allowed to touch a save statue 5 times. That includes resting at the inn. And once again, severely limits your ability to heal yourself. Oh, I completely spaced out on something. I was supposed to do a trick there. So, whenever you use a black onyx, you return to the entrance of the room that you used it in. So when I looted those chests down there, I was supposed to use a black onyx, because then it would return me back to the door I'm about to touch. Saves a very mild amount of time, so it's no big loss, and doesn't change anything, but I guess I just kind of spaced out. But yes, S rank is incredibly brutal. You have to beat the game in 6 hours. We ought to be finishing it in 2 here. So there's obviously a little bit of leeway. The thing that would take the most time that is an S rank requirement is that you have to master the ability of every single weapon. Which means you have to get every weapon in the game that teaches an ability to 100% proficiency. And that is a lot more stabbing and slashing than you would need to actually complete the game, by a fairly ridiculous amount. Yes, the game auto-unequips whenever you don't have the stats to use something. You might have seen the sword drop out of my hand when I became a wizard again briefly there. For now, we are re-equipping our smashy sticks. I'm gonna go ahead and make a safety save, because sometimes this place can go horribly wrong. And it's interesting that Nikki mentioned the Ancient Cave, because we have a little bit of a randomized dungeon here as well. This one's only 4 floors, and there's no jelly at the end. Instead, we get a boss that really bugs me sometimes. So I do have a little bit of spiel about this. This is called the Time Crevice, which is an incredibly unfortunate name. The first floor is the only floor that is not randomized. It always has the same layout, enemy locations, and has 4,000 boxes, 4,000 gold, and 4 chests. We're going to try to ignore all that and just run right through. I'm going to do a brief menu here to get my potions. The only thing I really want to have equipped other than potions is the glove, because on occasion things will kind of put their backs to the boxes in the middle. Go ahead and do this right there. Myself thrust and ice, because lightning is useless. I needed that. Good job, hero. Really wrecked that wall for no reason. Good job, buddy. The 2nd through 4th floors are completely randomized. The only thing that seems even moderately relevant is that there is always going to be a split in the passage. And at the end of one trail on the split is, yeah, see like this? I'm just gonna go ahead and Kool-Aid Man my way around some of these boxes so I can get my backstabs in. Since we aren't really kitted out stat-wise to engage these things in melee yet, we're going to rely on nice juke, backstabs, because as I mentioned at the very beginning of the run, there is directional damage. So when I'm attacking something from the front, its block and evasion chance fully applies. When I'm backstabbing, neither of those applies, and I get a very large damage boost. We went back to, I guess this is sort of hybrid, since I'm still sort of blasting things as a wizard here, but also stabbing. Because there are these golems, that's one there. They are immune to magic, of all types. So you actually have to be a physical build to kill them. Other than the golems, the only other enemy of note in the game that is completely immune, quote-unquote, to magic is the final boss. So, the Askamoid, the not a beholder dude, these golems, and the final boss all require some degree of hybridization. The randomness here, let me see. So the path will always split. If I see a trap or puzzle room, that means 95% of the time that I'm on my way to the treasure on the floor. Hello? Why'd you hide over here, buddy? You were definitely engaged. I walked right by you. Poor guy. So this 2nd floor, the treasure is something called a Shadow Axe, which is a pretty magnificent weapon simply because of its ability, which increases your move speed dramatically. However, it requires an extra 2 or 3 levels worth of stats, and by the time we would have that in a speedrun, we would already be 3/4 of the way through the final dungeon. Because of the way experience works. You get experience relative to the enemy's level compared to yours. And even with Flugel, nice, we went straight to the exit on that floor. But yeah, if we could have that move speed, it would cut about 3 minutes off the run all by itself. Which, you know, pretty solid. Gotta be very careful of those slimes. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but slimes are actually some of the most dangerous enemies in this game. Not necessarily because of the damage that they do, but because their hitbox has a bug where it lingers. So when they do this little lurch forwards to try to hit you, they can actually hit you, I think, up to 7 times in a row if you're standing just in the unluckiest spot imaginable. Now these slimes are particularly dangerous on that note because when you hit them, they break into a bunch of smaller slimes. And this particular breed of slime is incredibly fast moving, like that, you see? And when they break into smaller slimes, the small slimes retain the attack power of the larger slime, and the movement speed. So then you have a bunch of tiny little slimes running around at incredible speeds, just trying to murder you. And it's a little bit cute, but also horrifyingly scary. Nice magic potion. I'm gonna go ahead and take advantage of those. We dropped to second floor, straight to the exit again. Wonderful. Been slightly longer hallways than, so I wouldn't call these fast floors, but they've been good floors. And the magic potions will certainly help our speed of clear here. On this floor, the treasure reward, dangerous. The treasure reward is an Ignition 2 spell, so a stronger version of the fiery explosion thing we've been using to wipe the floor with enemies. And we definitely want that, not the least for the next boss, which has not a form, but a piece of it is weak to fire. But it also helps us significantly on the experience and clearing route through the final dungeon, which is coming up after this one. So I'm getting the feeling we're heading towards the exit, which will be unfortunate, especially if this is a long hallway, but there's no way to tell. Until we get there. Okay, I have to backtrack and go through the other side. Let's hope that there are only a couple of floors there. I believe the most floors I've seen in the time crevice, or the most rooms that I've seen on a floor in the time crevice, is 12. There's a 100-floor post-game dungeon, which is just this for a very long time. And I think I've seen... Get out of the wall, buddy! I will go in there after you. Yes, I've seen around 20 rooms in a floor in that post-game dungeon. And it actually does have a super secret special boss at the end. So this game has its own little ancient cave you can do once you've beaten the final boss. And it gets really clever with what it does in there, actually. In this dungeon, I think actually most of the drop tables align. But yes, if you kill the final enemy on the screen with a physical attack, the items that are in the chest are pulled from that specific enemy's drop list. In this dungeon, everything either drops a large healing potion, a mana potion, or 200 to 500 gold. So I'm not really searching for anything specific, because I have everything that I need at this point. Magic potions make it a little bit more convenient. We were lucky none of the enemies respawned. And now we're going up to... it's a boss. It used to really sting to take a death here, but we sort of rerouted around a few things. Once again, just a few extra little safety saves. We're going to use the slow travel system here. Do our final reallocation. We'll be allocating stats one more time after this. So this time it's not all going into intelligence, because once again we do need... go with 51 this time. 2 extra. Yes, okay, that makes sense. We were short a strength seed. Now that I've activated that, I'm gonna go ahead and, once again for safety, just stock completely up on potions. Just all the potions. I might as well just give myself, let's call it 6 keys. In case something goes horribly wrong with doors. Don't need that, don't need that. Now we have to use the in-game travel system for that particular return to town, because that arena we were in is actually one enormous screen, and part of that screen is a boss chamber. So this is just a zoom in on a certain part of the area, and up these stairs is the actual boss arena. Let me get the potion up there. Okay, should be good to kill it. I did throw a few bug puns out if anybody picked up on those. Going back to, let me see here. Doninator 1's question. Yes, the S rank would essentially be the same thing as this, but you'd have an additional 2 or 3 hours of standing in a room hitting boxes with various clubs and swords and axes. And then there are just incredibly painful restrictions on your ability to heal yourself and restore your stats. I did play around with routing it out briefly, but then I just lost interest when I realized how tedious it would be. So you'd get to this point in the game, you'd get an additional 2 or 3 levels so you could use the weapons that you find in the castle. I believe there are 3 or 4. Max out their skills, because another requirement is that you kill the final boss at level 14 or 15. Because if you're level 16 or higher, it goes from an S rank down to like a B rank for that particular stat, which is your level. So you have to D-level and to fight the final boss. It's some of the requirements for S rank are just a little bit why? But for the timing portion, it's actually fairly forgiving. Various things in town, like I believe all shop menus or while you're indoors, the in-game timer doesn't count for you. I'm gonna go ahead and get a safety elixir in here. I did get a brief flash of the estimate that was on screen. And I believe Mackerton put it as 145. I don't know if he fixed that before the stream actually kicked off, but it is a little bit higher than that, so that is, I think the record is 143. We had a slightly longer time crevice, so that dream's gone, but we will finish fairly shortly. Okay. I think you were still setting up a little bit on your restream. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure that nobody was tapping their watch. Okay. Because we are approaching 145 fairly quickly. And we do have another 50 doors to get through. Yeah. A few people have actually done... I think 2 people have recorded segmented S-rank runs. I think the only links I found to them were on the Steam forums. Things have gone fairly smoothly. Only an unfortunate death here in the castle can mess us up from here on out, but I do add a little bit of a buffer for things that can go wrong. Like I said, there was a crash screen previously. I can literally die on, I want to say something like 92% of the screens in the game, and depending on where that is, it can be horrifying time-wise. Whenever you die, you lose a significant amount of the items in your inventory, and a great deal of your money as well, so you can imagine why that would ruin a run if you die in the wrong spot. Some more floaty box puzzles here. I need my boots. These boots are made for floating. Since everything's gone moderately okay and I didn't make any mathematical errors, we are going to finish. Or I could die. Yes, see, that's why there are buffers. I do apologize, but I think we're gonna finish under estimate at this point. Just to give a heads up there. I need the glove. I think I just need the glove at this point. We shall see. Oh, this dungeon is actually... I think it might be the only game that I've played... Oh, alright. Ruby armlet. That works. Might as well swap the glove out now, too. That's a safety shortcut. I generally don't need it, but if I die somewhere that one of my safety save backups doesn't allow me to fix, that'll save about 10 minutes of walking time. These torches are a little bit glitched. If you try to use the auto-aim... Oh, well, of course, when I try to show it off, it works perfectly. For some reason, their hitboxes are offset severely. So if you try to use the auto-aim, it'll fire into the wall. So I have to manually snipe with the mouse. It's very, very strange. So keep an eye on my experience bar for these next couple of screens. See, that was a good eighth of the bar. Pretty solid, pretty solid. Another solid chunk there. See that battle log going a little bit crazy down there too? I see. And let's get a decent potion in that slot in case things go bad. I was feeling very uncomfortable with getting close to 145 when I submitted this, because I was a little bit rusty, and the game was being incredibly rude to me the entire time that I was practicing. Just killing me left and right. And crashing a lot, too, in places that it doesn't usually crash. There's one more coming up that will be a moderate to severe time loss if it hits us. I made a safety save to cover for that. Big, earth-breaking, and it's a lot of risk to invest into. Right now we could actually... Oh no, we haven't visited town again. The reason we don't have to invest a bunch of points into various stats in order to wield the weapon I intend to use for the final boss is that the Dragon Slayer sword requires 5 in every stat, which is the default stat you get at level 1. And there's a couple reasons for that mechanic-wise, for in-game shenanigans. Agnes, if you buy every one of her special items, she'll give you... And she has a side quest. I believe it's the side quest where she gives you the Guardian card, Beafroid. And Beafroid can only go to level 3, and it has not the highest, but incredibly high requirements for each level up of its card. And there's good reason for that. Every card level for Beafroid gives you an additional stat point on level up. So instead of getting 6 a level, at max level Beafroid, you get 9 a level. And we're already level 16. We're probably going to finish... Yeah, this should be the level we finish at. I could grind out to 13. There's been a little bitty strat I've been playing with that is dependent on getting more strength and praying for crits on the final boss. Because if you get enough crits, it shaves off an entire battle cycle. And you can get another level just kind of casually running through here and blasting things to pieces. It can be done. It can be routed. But it's still reliant on a lot of luck throughout the entire run for a small tweak at the end, so it's not something I'm super concerned about. Any more questions from chat or the co-host about the game that I can invest some time into? It's a very long dungeon here. Any more shout-outs or plugs that need to be made? Any donations? Feel free.
Yeah, no donations right now. No. So yeah, guess.
All right then.
But yeah, no need to worry about time whatsoever. You have a lot of time left, and we have pretty long setup time afterwards. So.
All right. I was expecting something to go wrong. Several things went wrong in the Questing for Glory Marathon last year, and I was very anxious about that the entire time. But that one turned out okay as well. Oh, it's fine, Macker. I think we had a few minor communication bumps there because of Discord being mega rude, but... Thank you for restreaming for the marathon. So we're going to abuse the Black Onyx here once again. Remember, whenever you return, it brings you to the door of the room that you were in. So instead making a loop there, I'm just going to take this keystone we unlocked with the puzzle and move along. For this final zone, Stradivarian, they want you to use the Dragon Slayer to kill the dragon, because that's the point. It's a Dragon Slayer video game. And Dragon Slayer is a physical ability that comes attached to the Dragon Slayer sword, with which you kill dragons, by the way, just to make that clear. As for Askamoid, I believe he was intended... Okay, so we've only used, what, 3 weapons? But there were a great number of weapons. Let's see, this is your ability sheet, and almost every one of the... I think, yeah, every one of these blanks can be filled with abilities learned from weapons. We're about to pick up a very fun spell. This is the Death spell. It's named very well, I think. I'm going to show this off in a few rooms just to get things out of my way. So this is what the Death spell does. It's incredibly overpowered, especially if you've invested enough into magic to make it worthwhile. And it also has a fun secondary quirk to it that I'll be showing off in a moment. Let me go back to Askamoid. That barrier around him, Shiroi Tenchi found... Oh, the weapons. I mentioned the weapon abilities because of this. I'm going to make a safety Onyx to town here. Right. Not only does Askamoid make you split your stats up as a warning that you're going to need to be able to hit something for the final boss, so you don't completely unhinge your build to the point that it's unusable, which is nice of the developers, even though it's sort of tongue-in-cheek that they do that. Because you still have several dungeons to go through afterwards. I believe that it was intended for hybrid builds to function there. Safety. I'm making a save, because the crash screen is coming up, and doing this is a little bit faster than loading the safety save. So Askamoid specifically, there were 3 elemental blades, and they teach you an elemental aura. So your weapon does an additional flat base damage, as well as some of that damage being changed to an elemental type of either fire, ice, or lightning. And Askamoid's immunity barrier can actually be breached by the elemental auras. So I think they were sort of edging as a... I missed the jump, because I had the boots on. Alright. Not the reason I wanted to use that save, but we'll do it. Take these stinking boots off. Whenever you're hovering, it slows your movement down significantly, and it messes with the angle of your hop. And the final keystone of the game is an invisible box that you just have to hop down to blind. It's a decision to have done that. So if you have the boots on and you try to make this jump, you'll either fall short like I did earlier, or you'll hover slightly past. Wow. I was just trying to show off the ledge, hero, not make you fall. Moving on. Eventually. It's 3 screens away from the final boss at this point. 3 screens and an excessively long stairway, so no worries about that sucking up too much time. Boots are still on. Okay. Just throw those away. So this is the screen that... This screen has crashed on me twice in the entire time I've been running this game. But in my practice sessions this week, it's crashed on me 3 times. So I'm just gonna get as close to this door as possible, so there's very, very little on the screen for it to deal with. And if it crashes, I'll load the safety save that is ahead. It's fine. So I just spent 2 hours preparing that for no reason. Excellent. Because I had to do a run in order to get the safety save. I actually named the safety saves what was, at the time, the current bid war leader. And let's go ahead and get some safety potions. Now, the reason we black onyx in that room is to return to the entrance, because it is a 4-minute walk back to the room that you used the keystone in. If you fall down and get the keystone. So black onyxing is very buoyant. Tata UT came up with the original use of the black onyx doorway thing. And then Shiroi found several other uses for it, which I've shown throughout the run here. And that has cut about 10 minutes or so off of the run. An exceedingly evil presence was felt when I entered this room. I just thought I'd let you guys know. The final save point, the ridiculously long staircase that really seems to drag on forever. That was a hint to throw as many puns out as you'd like. And then prepare your butts for awesome music. So, this dragon is supposed to be immune to everything but the Dragon Slayer sword and its dragon slaying related abilities. However, in its first phase, the death spell, for whatever reason, can hurt its foot. And since the death spell is a sort of weird projectile that has properties of no other spell in the game, it can actually strike him twice per bolt. So instead of relying on the Dragon Slayer sword to slay this dragon, we're going to clip his toenails with a death spell. Ten strikes on the foot makes him vulnerable. And I got the positioning right, so we're not double hitting. I must have moved slightly. Still got him. And that is the first phase of the final boss. And now we're going to get to the kickin' tune, and it becomes a little bit of a bullet hell segment, so I'm going to be a little bit quiet so I can focus. He takes his mask off for the final form to reveal that he is, in fact, still a dragon. I see. I'm glad I didn't have a timer set to actual splits, because I definitely would have been reaching for it there. I'm not sure exactly why he is not dead. You can see he has no health. What a butt. Oh, get out of the way. I see. That has never happened before. So those skulls respawn periodically, and I happen to be standing on top of all three of them, and they pinned me into a laser. So that was unfortunate. And that's what the safety elixir is for. And that is Xanadu next. If there's plenty of free time, the song on the credits is also pretty amazing. So I'd like to be able to show that off whenever I can.
GG.
Thank you for the GGs.
Perfect estimate, I would say.
Almost, yeah. Awesome. Which means that time crevice was pretty bad, because only about 2 minutes of that was me falling accidentally there. Here are the credits. Thank you all for letting me run on the marathon. It was great to be able to show the game off. And I'm glad to have supported you guys with the charity as much as I could there.